South Australia is not short of defence investment, but it is short of firms that are prepared for what's coming. Nationally, Defence will spend $330 billion in capability this decade. And a disproportionate amount of that investment is landing right here in South Australia. So if you're in this market and you're still reactive, then that's not a funding problem, that's a discipline problem. And today I'm going to show you where the gravity sits and where you might be wasting your time in your business development efforts. The Defence Capital Facilities and Infrastructure Pipeline is not a promise, it is a planning instrument. Last July at the briefing in Canberra, South Australia had $1.9 billion approved and $1.4 billion in unapproved work. By November, so within a few months, that number had shifted. So what happened? The approved number went down and the unapproved number went up. And then yesterday, as I was putting together the finishing touches of this presentation, that number more than doubled when Osborne got a major green light from the Prime Minister. So what's the translation here? The pipeline is more political than ever, but it's also less certain because unapproved investment takes time to work its way through the system. So the bottom line is if your revenue plan assumes unapproved equals imminent, then you're basically building your business on sand. So take these numbers with caution. Looking at South Australia, there are 4 centres of gravity that dominate the South Australian defence landscape: Osborne, Edinburgh, Keswick and the metro area. And then there's the northwest, which includes Woomera, Kultana and Port Wakefield. Keswick and Woomera, they're yet to be approved. So unless you're a designer, you'll be lucky to get any work there this year. Osborne, currently out for tender, major partners. So if you're not already engaged out there or you're bidding, then there's really nothing for you in 2026. Let's look at Osborne now, and let's stop pretending that this is just another defence project. It's not. It wasn't even touched on at the CFI briefing in November, and the information we do have is from the ANI website and the press releases that we've received in the last 24, 48 hours. They put a price tag on it. It's a $30 billion industrial machine, and most of the firms in this room are not built for it. Area 1, $5 billion alone. That's where the steel is pressed, cut and rolled by machines that are the size of houses. Area 2, $8 billion. You're blasting, coating, wiring, insulating these modules. That's where things start to get complex. And then Area 3, more than $15 billion. That's where the nuclear consolidation happens. This will be the most secure industrial precinct in Australia. Nuclear secure. So different licenses, different tolerances, different accountability. And if your governance framework still looks like a commercial mid-tier builder in 2015, then you're not getting anywhere near Area 3. That's just the reality. So the part that people don't realise is that we're not waiting for the whole yard to be completed. They're starting building submarines as soon as Area 1 is commissioned, which means that capability maturity is going to be a rolling progression. They're not waiting for someone else to turn up to do this. They're expecting an uplift from the South Australian industry. So no waiting for ribbon cutting. The timeline is clear. Area 1 is underway. Early works commenced more than 12 months ago. Area 2 starts later this year. Area 3 the year after that. The submarine expects to be commenced by the end of the 2020s and delivery in the 2040s. So this isn't just a project cycle, it's an industrial era for South Australia. And I want to be blunt here, it's going to create some real winners and it's going to expose some pretenders. So it's not about whether you can pour concrete or install services. It's about whether you can operate inside this nuclear regulated, clearance controlled, century scale industrial ecosystem. So if you haven't already started upgrading your security clearances, your board governances, your quality systems, your industrial partnerships, your workforce discipline, then you're not positioning for AUKUS. You're just going to be watching it happen. Osborne is so big, it creates its own gravity and it doesn't care about your intentions. It only cares about having mass. I'll move on now and talk about Edinburgh. And now this isn't just another base. This is Army long-range fires. This is DSTG. This is an ICT hub for this part of Australia. It's a destination for all the displaced functions that will come off the back of the disposals that are happening that we heard about a week ago. But more than anything, it's home to Air 7000. And when we think Air 7000, we think maritime surveillance. So at Edinburgh right now, there are 2 live Air 7000 streams that map to you if you're a builder. So both of them are real, both of them are moving, and both of them are Indigenous Procurement Limited. The first one is facilities to support the maritime patrol aircraft, the P8 Poseidon. This is the smaller of the 2 packages, has a contract value between $5 and $10 million. Delivery model is a medium works contract. So it's limited to Indigenous businesses. The RFQ is expected this quarter. In fact, it could already be out as we speak. So it's limited. We're not going to see it come out on AusTender. Construction will start in the second quarter and be completed by the end of the year. This is a facility upgrade to support the PA Poseidon capability. Think modifications to the existing P8 facilities. The design is effectively complete. AECOM completed the design last year. This is a construction only, and the big change from last year when I presented this was it's changed from a head contractor to a medium works contractor. They've assessed the complexity and downgraded it, and they've also made it an Indigenous procurement opportunity. So this means tighter tender period, limited market, fast execution. This is not a strategic play, but this is a short, fast opportunity to get some runs on the board early. Second project, Hangar 564. This is for the Triton, and this is a more serious one. This is $35 to $40 million. It's an early contractor involvement project. It's the first Indigenous early contractor involvement project that I've seen in this industry, at least. 2-horse race is what they're suggesting, and they've delayed the procurement by 3 months while they deliberate over the procurement methodology. But the scope will be the conversion of an existing hangar, that's Hangar 564, expansion works to accommodate up to 4 of these Triton aircraft. If you've seen these things, small fuselage, massive wingspan. They just opened some new ones out at RAAF Tyndall. The new annex to an existing hangar, workshop and storage facilities, some major building services upgrades, all for that deeper maintenance capability integration. So the ECI model signals that there's some risk sharing happening. Some design refinement will be needed before the full commitment will happen. So since the last brief, they've changed this procurement method. I think there's still a really important opportunity. So the takeaway here, Edinburgh is not an abstract pipeline. It is approved, it's live, it's happening already. Air 7000 is the flavour for this year. One project tactical, fast. The second project strategic and probably more structured. So if you're an Indigenous aligned and you're delivery ready, then probably that P8 Poseidon would be the way to go. But if you're a tier 1 or a strong mid-tier with that ECI capability and a reputable Indigenous partner, then the Triton project could be your entry point. Keswick. Let's be clear, Keswick isn't being upgraded, it's being emptied. It's not a heritage refurbishment, it's a strategic rationalisation. There's 34 user groups that all need to be moved. There's Army regulars, there's reserves, there's cadets, there's band, there's museum, support elements. All of it has to be vacated. And then it's not going to one shiny new campus either. It's distributed. Most of it's going to Edinburgh, possibly some to Warradale, potentially some other metro sites. That means there is duplication risk, there's sequencing risk, there's live base integration risk. The works aren't glamorous, but there will be 11 new buildings, 17 adaptive reuses. If that word doesn't scare you, then you haven't been in this industry long enough. Supporting infrastructure, so civil, electrical, security, the usual. That's where the complexity hides. Adaptive reuse is not clean sheet design. There's constraints, there's legacy services, there's unknown conditions, there's user politics. We've got a multiplex heading this up under a managing contractor model. They released an EOI. It closed on Friday for 22 design packages, totaling $10 to $15 million. Total works expected to be 200 to 300 million, could be more. Awarding the design in April 2026 for completion in November 2029. Okay, this is not the Keswick job. Like I said, it's a Metropolitan Defence Migration Program. It's compounded the complexity by the estate audit report that came out, where some of the destination bases for these units have been flagged for selling off. So don't mistake this for a simple mid-tier opportunity. It's complex, but it will reward disciplined approaches. Speaking of divestment, this is one of the variables that we've all been trying to ignore. We can't ignore it any longer. The audit report landed and it didn't just list assets for disposal, it flagged a change needed in Defence's approach to estate management. So when a site is flagged for exit, think Edinburgh Parks, Hampstead Barracks, Warradale, Woodside, two things are going to happen. Firstly, there's the bridging works, so interim upgrades, relocations, compliance fixes, taking the existing facilities to the point where they're ready to relocate. The second is that suppressed capital. So long-term redevelopment confidence will drop. The big master plan stall, ambition sinks. If you're chasing these major redevelopment projects, that's not what this is at a disposal site. It's about remobilising these units, demobilising for the sell-off. Next up, we'll talk about estate works. So this is the hidden part of defence estate investment that a lot of companies ignore. It's not glamorous. It's not billion-dollar headlines, but it is where the credibility gets earned. One project at the moment is currently under evaluation. That's at DSTG. And there's been 3 Port Wakefield projects that have been pushed back. They were meant to go out in 2025. They're due for release this quarter. You've then got Coltana Road project that was pushed back as well. So Q1 and Q2 are now going to be congested. There's multiple infrastructure upgrades that were announced in November, due for release in Q2. That's no coincidence. That all stems from the new PDS contract that's been signed. Defence has only one PDS contractor that they're retaining from the previous contracts, Oricon, represented in South Australia by Sam Stigg. They're the continuity. So they are the ones releasing new projects. Meanwhile, we've got 2 new players, Bureau Veritas, formerly known as EPP, and Mott MacDonald. And those 2 firms, we initially thought they would be competing for tranches of work. They're now being allocated for at least the first 2 tranches. So we're expecting one by the end of February, another one April, May, perhaps. Those projects won't come to market for at least a year. So at least for 2026, you've got one relationship. Estate works is a relationship game. If you're waiting for tenders to drop on AusTender, it's already too late. If you're not known and you're not visible, you're not pre-positioned before that release date, then you're not going to get a fair shot at this work. Last thing I wanted to say, this is a great training ground for businesses that are looking to get more active in defence long term. So it might not be your sweet spot, but it's well worth sharpening the tool on the estate works projects. PFAS. Let's talk about PFAS now. Not exciting, but it's something that doesn't go away. Woodside Barracks is the focus for South Australia for the PFAS program in 2026. So there'll be a single stage procurement, 12-month program, investigation first, and then remediation if required. This is liability management. It's not capital expansion or capability uplift, but once this stuff gets into the groundwater, it's no longer just a base issue, it's a community issue. It's regulatory, it's community facing, it's managing reputations. The pattern here is that PFAS projects almost always grow after the investigation happens. So they'll flag a figure, but nobody really knows how much it will cost to remediate this stuff, particularly in this case where the site is being sold off at the completion of the remediation. So if you don't have remediation capability, hydrogeology, groundwater modelling, regulatory navigation, then don't bother. But if you do, then this could become steady, recurring work. This is only the beginning. Designers in the room. Let me show you what might be the most important design opportunity in the defence estate right now. This is supporting JP 2092. This is the Guided Weapons Explosive Ordnance Storage and Distribution Program. $60 to $80 million in design fees alone. Let that sink in. It's the largest design tender I've ever seen. It's not just one building, it's a hardened national asset program across 8 sites across the country, South Australia, but also WA, NT, Victoria, Queensland, New South Wales. For South Australia, that means Coltana and Woomera, and it's also directly linked to the Port Wakefield upgrades that were just completed recently. We talk about earth-covered magazines, hardened storage facilities, blast-separated facilities, heavy civil earthworks, explosive ordnance compliance, dangerous goods, environmental controls, secure perimeters. These are not architect-led showpieces. They're strategic assets placed in the middle of nowhere where they can't do any harm, and they sit at the heart of Australia's sovereign munitions capability. The ITR went out last year and the shortlist is under review, so expect to see the likes of ACOM, Jacobs, GHD, KBR, possibly you'll have Acor, Stantec, Becker, BG&E. This will be consortium heavy. It's just simply too big for one company. And it's going to be a long-term program. So don't expect any of these projects to come out in the near future. They will be designed and then they'll be rolled out in packages. So if you've never worked on or near any earth-covered or hardened explosive facilities, you're not going to be the prime contractor. But if you can insert yourself into one of these consortia, provide specialist services, might be structural or geotechnical or fire or dangerous goods, then you're entering the sovereign weapons supply chain. And that's a place where you're going to want to be in the coming decade. It's not commercial construction, it's a strategic deterrence initiative. And firms that get this sort of thing on their CV are going to carry credibility for the next decade. Zooming out now, and this one is not a building program, it's a network upgrade. It's called ESTJ 9111 Main Works, up to $450 million. It's a national footprint, 60 plus defence sites. It's a follow-on from the early works last year, single stage procurement, managing contractor delivery. Here's what you need to know about this project. It's not about offices, it's about capability, about supporting facilities, the ICT backbone and network integration, Zone 4 environments, which means controlled access, hardened secure spaces, clearance thresholds, compliance discipline, and it's national. So that's where complexity will compound. You've got different bases, different stakeholders, different legacy systems and different constraints all across the country. The shortlist was locked in late last year for managing contractors. The first thing they'll do is be releasing design tenders once the contract is signed. So it's not glamorous, but it is foundational to the backbone of this nation's defence infrastructure. So if you're comfortable operating inside that this protective security policy framework and the Zone 4 constraints of a project, then this could be your entry point. Before I finish up, I want to talk about Indigenous procurement. It's not optional. It is not a paragraph in your capability statement. It's a structural lever in defence procurement. So defence procurement policy is embedded in the evaluation frameworks now. The set-asides exist. Participation is assessed in the value for money criteria of the tenders, which means you can lose before your price is even evaluated. This is the part that I think people underestimate. It's not about optics, it's about eligibility to perform. And we're talking medium works, the estate works, we're talking the design services contracts, and we're talking the major construction contracts. IPP limited packages are increasing. They're increasing in size and they're increasing in how common they are. So if you think you can just add an Indigenous partner 2 weeks before the tender finishes, then you're probably kidding yourself. The paper partnerships fail quickly. They're easy to see through. That authenticity shows up in your evaluation, shows up in your governance, in your methodologies, in your risk allocation, your program structure. So the evaluators can see the difference. If your Indigenous strategy is reactive, then you're going to be exposed. But if it's built in early and you're aligned and it's genuine, thinking about your reconciliation action plans and how they reflect your tenders and they all synchronize, that's going to become an advantage for businesses in 2026. So it's not about charity, it's about compliance. And in some cases, it's going to be a competitive advantage. So firms that treat that IPP as part of your strategy will win more often than firms that are using it as a branding exercise. I think that's just the reality of life into the future. So the next 90 days, we'll determine your 2026. It's not the pipeline chart. It's not the RFT release dates. It's not the industry briefings that you attend. The 90 days before procurement, most firms are chasing everything reactively. And it's the ones who come into this industry with a strategy that are going to succeed. So first, you need to choose your anchor. Choose the 1 or 2 programs, not 10, but choose the ones that you want to position for. The next thing you're doing is fix your constraints. So your security posture, your clearances, your internal governance procedures, and your capacity for this work. It's eligibility or lack thereof that kills more bids than your prices ever do. So if you're not eligible, then it doesn't matter how enthusiastic you are, and that won't save you. You need to be shaping your business for this work now. And I think 90 days is a time frame you need to be thinking of to get these ducks in a row. So to close off, South Australia is not short of defence investment. It's short of firms that are prepared for what's coming. Over the next 5 years, we're going to see billions of dollars move through this state. And the question isn't whether there is work. The question is whether you will be ready when it arrives.